Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? Good morning, Bull Strike Cheetah. Good morning, John. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Sterling. Thank you for putting in the key earnings, Sterling. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Jacob. Who else do we have in here? Who else? Good morning, PMG. So, what else do we have? Let's just go through the earnings. Walmart was a miss on revenue, though. And not really great concrete guidance and saying that prices could be going up in the very near future. Baba, no surprise there, was a miss. Deere was a beat, but compare it to the same quarter last year. Something you should do. What else do we have? We have a lot of stuff coming out this morning, but first, who else is here? Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Heinrich. Hello, Charles. Good morning, Royal Palms. Powell, he was speaking. April PCE like around 2.2, and we'll see where it goes from there. Hey, Connor. So why won't what is going on? There we go. Sorry, I had a glitch on my end. So, all right. Well, today is also my birthday, so maybe we'll do a little shorter one today. Wish I could take tomorrow off, but alas, there's still more stuff coming out. I don't like when birthdays are on a weekday. I want it on a weekend. So, good morning, Harold. How are you doing today? All right. Sterling putting in the PPI, big drop in the PPI. A lot of this was due to tariffs not getting passed on and also things just grinding to a halt. So, we'll see how it is next month. We'll actually see how that is. Retail sales, consensus was 0.1, but down from 1.7 previous. So drop, higher than consensus, but drop there. Core PPI also a very steep drop there. By the way, last month was revised higher. March numbers were revised higher. Initial jobless claims was in line. Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index is still in contraction, although a little better than last time. What else do we have? Continuing jobless claims better than consensus, but higher than prior. Core PPI year over year is still coming in at 3.1. Philly Fed, this is interesting though. Prices paid at Philly Fed 59.80, a jump up in Philly Fed prices paid. Little bounce in employment right there. The overall PPI year over year was expected 2.5, coming in better at 2.4. So retail sales year over year at 5.2, and as Sterling put in there, we had some Powell speech this morning. So what do we have coming up next? In just a few minutes, we have industrial production capacity utilization. We have business inventories at 10 a.m. Eastern. The housing market index. What else do we have? Retail inventories. We have the 4 and 8 week bill option, and we have Barr speaking this afternoon. Now, tomorrow morning, we also have consumer sentiment. Now, that's after the live stream starts tomorrow morning. So, that's where we start right now. Oh, thank you very much, Royal Palms. Thank you very much, Richard. Why isn't this birthday? I don't know. They don't cover my birthday in the news. A young man. I wish I was a young man again. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. 30 is still young. Oh boy, you're off by a chunk there. Thank you, Charles. So, I'm glad Fink says the strength of, whenever they start saying that, I start to worry. All right. The mega caps are down this morning except for Google. Mega caps down. Cisco, which had earnings yesterday, had posted decent earnings. I don't know if Sterling, you can put Cisco's earnings in from yesterday. This morning, going into the open, remember, we've been on a pretty strong run. We got energy dropping. We'll go look at that with the double dot pattern that was invalidated before triggering. But energy still down. Consumer cyclical and technology. Consumer defensive minorly up. But again, we've had a pretty strong run. Not surprising to see a pause coming in. Fed watch. Let's just revise this since the PPI came out just to see if it has any impact. We have, again, pause still. then 2 cuts. So no big change there yet. Still at the upper end of greed. Will we get to extreme greed before we really roll over? That's the question. Schiller PE 36.18. We put in thanks to Sterling putting in the earnings this morning. After the close, we have Applied Materials is probably the biggest one. And then nothing much tomorrow morning. Now remember, we already had Walmart today. Which the big thing was a warning of price increases and missing on revenue. Now we have Home Depot, Lowe's, and Target, I believe, next week. So next week is going to be interesting to see some big other retailers whether they're aligning the same thing, whether they are doing the same thing. So that is very key going into next week. Oh, thank you very much, Sterling. A super chat from Sterling. Happy birthday, one of the best people I know. Thank you for being a genuine person who does this simply for the benefit of others. You are very welcome, and thank you for that super chat. Thank you very much, Sterling. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your kind words. Your kind words go a long way. Thank you. I did not feel like getting up this morning. I just wanted to lay there. I was up at 4 a.m. Did not want to be up. One of my dogs said they came in they know I get up at 4. They came in at 3:45 saying, "Aren't you up yet? I want to be up and go for my walk." And I'm just like, I just wanted to sleep a little more, but oh well, you know what? That's what a weekend's for. Dark screen. You're putting what? Dark screen. All right. Good morning, Anissa. Oh, thank you very much, Anissa. Thank you. You lost your third funded account. Learn again. It's a process. Keep working on it. Really manage reward and risk. It's even more important than setups. And focus on trading with a trend versus against a trend when you're first starting. If you manage reward and risk and really focus on trading with a trend, just like in the S&P, I'm still watching for pullbacks. Okay, I don't have a major topping pattern yet, and the probabilities still say higher. Could we get something that the S&P just drops? Yeah, but you can't worry about that. Then you take the loss. Other than that, trade with the trend, and also don't try to trade small caps and micro caps and all this other penny stocks. Focus on the stuff that's easier to trade. And by easier, the things that more people trade. All right? That's my advice to you. And really, man, everybody, focus more. People focus, and I'm not picking on anybody here, but a lot of people, they think there's magic, that they're going to learn a magic setup. There are better setups than others. The key is, though, even if you have even a halfway decent setup, if you're really focusing on managed reward to risk and realize that every setup does not produce a trade, because if you can't get proper reward to risk, it's not going to matter. That's my advice. Focus on managing risk, reward to risk, and probabilities. It's not the sexy stuff, but it's the stuff that will pay off long term. If we start dropping below the 4-hour rotation zone, and I'm paying close attention to this 58.67, 58.60 to 58.67, we start dropping below there. Really, the next key level I'm watching is about 57.93, then 57.57. Why so many levels on a pullback? Because we're pulling into the daily rotation zone. We also have a lot of key support we're coming back into. So, going to keep an eye on that, especially with cycles now. We're getting the end of the week cycles to the top on the daily and weekly. We don't have a rollover move yet. Remember, we can also do a sideways correction. That's why I'm paying very close attention over the next couple days at this 57.95, 57.97 area. Dark screen. Well, gold, I hope you haven't been trying to, well, now we do have a triggered short pattern. Until that, so I'm looking for some short-term rollover plays. Other than that, gold's been up. Don't micro trade gold. Also, you got to trade smaller positions with the bigger trend in gold. I noticed in the last couple of years you are never off. Is that an American thing? Yeah, it's an American thing. I'd love to. I miss Europe. I used to live in Switzerland and travel all over Europe, and I really miss it. It's really hard for me to travel though, especially with my wife having to travel a ton for work and having 4 dogs, and they cannot go into a kennel. Because of their backgrounds. So Cisco, thank you. Beat beat. There we go. Thank you. So that's what I'm watching. I'm still watching for rotations up, even on pullbacks, into the rotation zone. So, I mean, even on a pullback, think about this. Even if we violated the top of the rotation zone and pulled back closer to the 5,700 area, it would still be in bull mode. Now, could we then be putting in a more significant topping pattern on the next secondary bounce? Yes. But the trend is technically still up. NASDAQ. Here's exactly what I'm looking at for the NASDAQ today. Going into the open, we have this little area. We have the bottom of the 4-hour rotation zone in the 50% harmonic, 21,055 area, 21,080. That's the key area. If we drop below the support shelf and the prior harmonic, that's what I'm looking for to pull back into that area. If we hold this, again, the targets the upside pretty much take care of themselves, but the next major target is still 21,680. For the S&P, it's still 59.99, so 6K. On the bigger pullback in the NASDAQ, if we look for the bigger pullback, we're right around 21,000. That's actually in that area because that's a prior support shelf, confirmed resistance turning back into an emotional candle support. The Dow, we have UNH, which is dropping. If you didn't see, they are the fraud investigation. What was it, Medicare or Medicaid? I forget which one. But they're just getting absolutely obliterated. Yesterday closing below the 62.5. So on any bounces, still be watching for rollover plays in that because this thing could easily return to the 87.5 over the next few weeks. Not right well, you know, with this drop this morning, 282, that's getting closer, not. But that's going to affect the Dow big time. That's why I called that up. And again, my two favorite right now for longs are the S&P and NASDAQ. Dow, even though it's closed above the 62.5, it's pulled back to the rotation zone. We'll be looking at next week after some of this UNH news is digested. And if we break below this 41,800 area, I'm really, really focused on close to 41.6. The Russell, again, this is not the strongest thing to look for bullish plays. Go to the easier markets. We start dropping down. Russell, very key support is 2069, and then bumping this up a little. Yeah, we have the gap closed. We're going to be watching 2042 area to the gap fill. Other than that, the key targets to retest 21, 24, and then if we do break above this 2139, you still have the 62.5 harmonic, the harmonic projection, and the 200, where I'd be watching for a more significant topping pattern. VIX, not much to talk about. Into a very key support area with bottoming cycles, so I'm going to be watching for some setups as I talked about yesterday, but there's not great setups just yet. The DAX, still sideways correction with the rising rotation zone. Going to see if this sets up for, I don't know if it will, but it might set up for a %B tomorrow. Therefore, I'll watch today's high. Don't know yet. With the yields dropping after the PPI numbers, coming back into some key support area right around 4.45. 4.45. Yesterday, remember, this was the highest close since all the way back in the middle of February. So, little reaction to those PPI numbers, but the trend is definitely still up in that. Cycles at a top, coming out of overbought, so watching for this key pullback into some of the key support areas. Got your butt kicked in jiu-jitsu. Well, hopefully that's a good thing. You're running on fumes. Well, you're getting your workouts in. You're getting your good job, Sterling. All right, dollar, and you're still putting in stuff. Now, dollar index was going to be watching this key candle from yesterday. We sold off and then a pretty key bounce coming back down. Also going to be watching to see if we do set up a little mini bottoming pattern near yesterday's lows. Crude. Why was this not a double? It wasn't because of this move. It was because of the rule to count the candles. I believe there are 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then it triggered on the 9th, but it's technically not valid, so you cannot use those levels. So what levels would I use? What levels would I use? When you don't have a valid double, but you have a key break below a certain point, I start watching the harmonic areas and prior support. So we had a little support shelf here around the 37.5, and if we turn back down, I'm really paying attention to 59.60 area. And this key, you see the key double resistance turning into potential support. So if this rolls over again, because we got a little cross of 4-hour rotation zone, that's the very key area looking at key support and a key harmonic. So that's where that is, and that's why that was no longer valid. Gold. Gold. Now, I want to see follow through. Gold, which has been a strong move, triggered a daily double top yesterday. I'm now watching for rollover plays and bounce plays. We're getting a little bounce play after dipping below the 50 today with cycles at the bottom. I will be watching for bounce plays to set up potential shorts. Now, I will be a lot less aggressive because this is into the weekly rotation zone if we do not close. If we get back above 32.09 tomorrow, I will be a lot less aggressive to the downside watching for setups. Still, there will be some, but I will be watching for it to bounce, especially back closer to the first cross the rotation zone. And also, I'm not as aggressive because we got daily cycles still going down, yes, but weekly cycles could turn up. So I'm going to be watching how stuff reacts on this bounce. That's exactly, but it has triggered a double top. I would love to see the follow through on the weekly. Then I would be a little more aggressive. So, silver, still trying to dip below, but still got buying pressure. Silver still caught in a range here. So it's only range trading there. Nothing to talk about with copper. Yen. Now I'm going to be watching going into the next couple days for a potential cycles getting down and potentially bottoming pattern here. Nothing just yet. Euro. Still going to be watching for another rollover play unless we really start closing back above 112.80. Spiders. Spiders gap down today. 585. Again, 583 area is what I'll be watching on a continued pullback. And then I'll be looking right about 579. And then the major support over the next couple days on a continued pullback is right around 575. 574.50 to 575. We have not ticked off the 87.5 yet, so we'll still be looking, just like the S&P, for rotation setups back up. The Qs, the key area I'm still watching on a bigger pullback, we have a gap left behind at 507.85. The minor area that I'm looking is still with the harmonics from this low price of the gap up. We're trading 516.28 on a continued drop. I'm just looking at some of these harmonics, but the major level I'm watching is around 510 with the rising 4-hour rotation zone and the 50% harmonic from this little run-up. What else do we have? We have the good old Bitcoin. Still, perfect example so far of a sideways correction. The only thing I'm watching is the low from Monday. Then I'd start watching for the bigger pullback closer to the bottom of the rotation zone. All right, what do we have here? What do we have? I thought I saw some. Does MO have a potential weekly double top, or is it too sloppy? This is no. You cannot trade this as a double. I'm watching for pullbacks in MO. I think we put that in Slice too, in the newsletter. Watching for pullbacks in MO still. Okay, because this could go on a bigger pullback area, but that's what I'm watching for. And that's from a long term. This is a long term. Again, we've talked about this before. Wonderful. Look at the dividend yield, 7.24, PE 9.45. Even if that does drop, you know what, this can, MO could be really good stuff, but you cannot trade this as a double top. Hello, movie magic moments. Can I check PI USD? What is P? I do not look at, I don't think I've ever looked at PI, but I can look at it. Can I look at this? I mean, you can do technical analysis on anything. Is there a setup though? I mean, going into tomorrow, if this holds, I'd be watching today's high for a potential percent B buy setup. So we saw cycles rolling over on this last little run up. We didn't quite get to the 50% harmonics. That's going to be key though. The areas on the bounce side watch though would be about 1.25 area if it were to set up with a percent B buy bounce, but it's got to break. Tomorrow it's got to get through today's high if this still is valid and then close above it for the confirmed bounce trade. If not, just want to see where these harmonics are for the pullbacks. The harmonics is still on a closing basis, which is what you care about, the still closing above the 62.5. So I'd definitely be looking for a potential bounce play in this. Still. Now, if this closes below 8.8762, then I'd be watching for a continued further pullback, and the next area I would be looking for is 0.71 to about 0.74, 0.75. All right. All right. What else? Tesla, little gap down, very close to that 50% harmonic. I'm going to be watching for a more significant topping pattern. Then we got the pullback that I'm going to be watching for the next bounce play in there. Not Meta. Coming up, very key area we hit yesterday. This is where I was looking at this breakdown level just in front of the second target. Now we're gapping down. That's why that black line is there. But gapping down, we'll be watching for this pattern can still play out, but watching now for the rotation play back up. We are very overbought. We do have cycles still going on. What else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Not much. Avgo on any pullbacks, I'm still watching because of the 87.5 rule. Still watching, which is very key. This is a very key level in Broadcom. NVIDIA, still, we closed yesterday above the 62.5. So on any pullbacks, I'm still watching for higher prices in this. Finally closing above the 62.5. So the next key magnet prices for this are 136.50 and 144.80. So we'll be watching on these gap downs, especially if it holds key support of the 200. We'll still be watching for higher prices in that in the short term. That's why even on a lot of these, we don't have topping patterns yet. We have pullback patterns, but no topping patterns. I'm watching today how Amazon closes in relation to this 205.85 area, by the way. You're welcome, Andrea. That's where we sit. Oh, we got 1 minute to the open. Let's just peek in at the S&P. The S&P. Can you see that key level I'm watching down there? So that's still very, very key. Going into the S&P on the open, 58.67 area. 58.67 is very, very key. We start getting below that in the 4-hour rotation zone, then I'll start looking for the bigger pullback. Other than that, so far, this is just a little mini sideways. Those percent B buy, I don't understand. Those percent B buy are accurate and what indicator? That's a spaced out the Bollinger Bands. If you're trying to set up yourself, it's a 5-period length. It uses the high-low close divided by 3, 1 standard deviation. You watch for it to pull back for the buy setups. You watch for it to pull back below 0. That's the setup bar. Then if the next bar breaks that high and confirms, you can still trade it on the break of the high, which is what I do, especially with momentum stuff. But it's got to follow through with a close above that level, or I do not hold it. And again, research it yourself. All right? But that's the rule base. That's for buys. All right, let's just see where the tick opened. Tick, not that week in opening. I mean, it opened at minus 155. Little selling pressure there. So now I'm really watching that key support. Not anything. That's pretty much a flat opening for me. Slightly weak, but nothing major to the downside. So I'm going to be watching, again, the S&P. If you're looking for something going into the open, very, very key. It's got to start getting above 58.95 for the bull case and holding. That's a pretty key area. So you have key support reconfirmed with key resistance, reconfirmed with the stuff coming out right after the PPI as key resistance. So it's got to hold that level before I can remain bullish in the short term for a bounce. Other than that, I got to run. I will talk to everyone later. Have your cake and eat it too. Well, that sounds good. Potential percent B buy on the 4-hour for the S&P. And you can definitely trade them on the 4 hours. And yes, there is with the rotation zone. So thank you for pointing that out, Jake. So again, if you want to watch this, 58.96.50, right around that key 58.97 area. So watch if it breaks above there, it's got to sustain above there and follow through with a 4-hour close. So if I was going to trade this on that break above there and use that in conjunction with the 5-minute, okay, so you're going to watch it to sustain above this in the short term and then follow through with the 4-hour close. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Connor and Charles. All right. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I shall talk to everyone first thing tomorrow morning. Bye for now.